Hey guys, my name is Ronan. This is my second video and I'll be covering skills. Because this video may take a long time, I'll split it into two videos. One will be your damaging abilities and rotations. The second will be your cooldowns and cross-class skills. First off, we'll start with heavy swing. Heavy swing is the skill that you will use the most since it is the ability that starts off your combo rotations. When I say combo, it means that the skill will highlight another skill which then you can use, and it will have an increased potency, and will also highlight another skill which will be part of a further combo. And that skill will also have an increased potency and sometimes even secondary effects while it is comboed. These comboed abilities work the same for ninja, monk, dragoon, and warrior. You always want to use your skills while they are comboed. If you are using an uncomboed ability, let's say butcher's block, then you are just basically using a less effective skill. Skull Sunder is your second skill in one of three combos that a warrior has in his arsenal. It has a potency of 100, but if used after heavy swing, it will do 200 potency damage, which is twice the amount of damage. Skull Sunder is part of your butcher's block combination, which is a hate generating rotation. The third skill in your enmity generating rotation is Butcher's Block. This is your best hate generating combo in your arsenal on a single target. When comboed, it attacks for 280 potency and completing your first of three combos. Maim follows heavy swing and attacks for 190 potency, buffs you with increased damage dealt by 20% for 24 seconds after level 48. The 20% damage buff is a must and it should be up as much as possible. Maim will allow you to combo Storm's Eye or Storm's Path. Storm's Eye will hit with 270 potency and add a debuff on your target that reduces their slashing resistance by 10%, which will increase almost all of your attacks by 10%. It is also useful to use for the attacks from a Paladin, Ninja, and I suspect Dark Knight will also benefit from this buff. It does not stack with Dancing Edge. Storm's Eye also reduces the heals the target receives from a caster by 20%, although that is generally pretty useless other than PvP, as enemies don't generally get heals from a magic source. Now my favorite skill is Storm's Path. When used comboed from Maim, it will deal 250 potency and absorb 50% of that to heal you. So 125 potency heal, and for 20 seconds the target will deal 10% less damage. I reviewed some guides and a lot of people overlook this skill. Personally, Storm's Path is always up, whether I'm off tanking or main tanking, for the self heals and the debuff, since it reduces damage by 10% even AoE. It's almost like having Virus constantly up. As a tank class, my primary role is to mitigate as much damage as possible to myself and the group, and I believe that Storm's Path perfectly accomplishes that role. So to recap the combo rotations, when the term Butcher's Block combo is used, it means heavy swing, followed by Skull Sunder, then Butcher's Block. For Storm's Eye, it means heavy swing, maim, Storm's Eye. For Storm's Path, it's heavy swing, maim, Storm's Path. Those are your three combos for Warrior. The next skill we're going to talk about is Fracture. Fracture is one of the skills that I see either not being used or not getting used effectively. After level 28, Fracture lasts longer and deals 100 potency initial hit, followed by 10 ticks of 20 potency, for a total of 300 potency attack. Your second strongest skill available for a single target. The TP cost is high at 80, and if spammed, it will reduce your TP to 0 faster, and then become a DPS loss. This is mainly an issue when you are not in Defiance. The best way to use Fracture is to have buffs up before applying Fracture, since the game will basically take a screenshot of all of your buffs upon applying a dot, which stands for damage over time, and stay active throughout the entire duration, which is 30 seconds for Fracture. Even if Berserk and Internal Release only have 1 second left, and you use Fracture, the entire duration will count as having Berserk and Internal Release. I used to use Fracture on cooldown and only noticed about a 1 to 2% damage drop when I started using it only when buffed. But over long fights, my DPS was actually better because I managed my TP a lot better. Since when I'm generally off tanking, I am not in Defiance, so I can actually do more damage. And since when you are out of Defiance, you do not get the Inner Beast or Steel Cyclone to actually regenerate some TP by using the abilities that cost you 0. A good way to use Fracture is when you have to disconnect from a boss. Let's say you have to avoid damage or you have to go pick up adds. If you apply Fracture and then you walk away, that damage still ticks as you're dealing with other adds or moving around. This is still a DPS gain. Next, we're going to cover Overpower. Overpower is the warrior's AoE cone threat generating ability. This skill hits for 120 potency to all enemies in front of you. This skill can be spammed, but it requires 130 TP to use, and I would recommend only using it once or twice when you have 3 or more mobs, and never use it on a single target. Tomahawk. Tomahawk is great for pulling mobs or getting some initial hate on adds that are just out of your reach. It costs 130 TP and only does 130 potency. Unless you have an abundance of TP while you are out of range, or you need to grab initial threat from an add that is out of your melee range, I would not use Tomahawk. A good way to use this skill is if you're not yet in melee range, you can provoke and Tomahawk, and this should guarantee you having the hate on the mob. Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is the first off global cooldown skill we're going to talk about. And when I say off global cooldown, it means that you can use it in between 2 abilities. Let's say you used Heavy Swing, you could use Brutal Swing, then you can use Maim, and all abilities would hit without delay. Brutal Swing hits for 100 potency and stuns your target for 5 seconds. Because it is an off global cooldown, it is really good to use when you need to stun an enemy, because you don't have to wait for your next attack to use it. If you know that you do not need to stun or you cannot stun your target, you should just use it every cooldown so that it increases your damage. This is one of the few abilities that can be used when pacified. Mercy Stroke. Mercy Stroke is an off global ability that will only activate when the target is below 20% HP. This skill hits for 200 potency, it has a 40-second cooldown, and if you kill the target with this skill, you will actually heal for 20% of your max HP. Mercy Stroke can also be used when pacified, and you should always try to get the last hit since it will boost your DPS and often heal you at the same time. Next is Steel Cyclone. It requires 5 stacks of brass to use. It deals 200 potency in a large AoE around you and generate a lot of enmity. This skill costs 0 TP. And by using this skill, you will actually regenerate TP, and in longer fights, you will actually not run out of TP. It also ignores 25% of the Defiance damage reduction. Steel Cyclone is best used when you are able to hit 2 or more adds. When you have 5 Wrath stacks, your other ability you can use is Inner Beast. It also costs no TP, and it deals 300 damage potency to a single target and ignores 100% of the Defiance damage reduction. It is also a threat generating skill like Steel Cyclone. Inner Beast will heal you for 100% of the damage dealt. Another effect which makes it a defensive cooldown is that it adds 20% damage reduction for the next 6 seconds, which makes a significant difference in your survivability. This should cover all damaging abilities for the warrior. Again, thank you for watching, and the following video should cover all of the cross-class skills and cooldown abilities. One thing I forgot to mention that I do while I am tanking with Fracture is I will go 5 stacks of brass. And then I will use Inner Beast with my 5th stack. And when I know that there's not going to be big attacks coming out, remove Defiance, use Fracture, put Defiance back on, Infuriate, Inner Beast again to self-heal some of the damage I may have taken, and then my Fracture will actually do the full potential damage as opposed to having the 25% damage reduction from Defiance, and all I did was remove Defiance for 1 attack, so it's not very risky and getting more damage for the full duration of